All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Competence Podcast. We're talking college football, and we're recapping week number 2. Major upsets there in college football. A lot of moving, a lot of shaking. But the man who's never stopping moving and shaking on the dance floor, my co-host Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Haps, I'm feeling biblical today. You know there's
Oh,
actually 11 you know there's actually 11 commandments. Everyone knows the 10, but the 11 one people sort of figure out as they go forward, and that is thou shalt not kick field goals against Alabama. Thou shall score touchdowns and own the line of scrimmage. For a while, people didn't understand this rule. It was kind of mystery, and eventually they started figuring out in Oxford and Auburn and in Aggie land, and then January 2022, the Dogs figured it out, but now it's starting to become a trend. Read the scriptures, folks. It's there. That's how you beat Alabama. It's been there forever. Just understand it. Score touchdowns, line of scrimmage, don't kick field goals, and you get it done. In Texas, they were fully involved in that scripture and that commandment, and they took care of business on Saturday.
yeah, a huge win by the Texas Longhorns. And I think now officially we can start really saying that Texas is back, because I think that's the biggest win, if not a bigger win than the week prior. We've had 2 weeks, 2 huge wins. FSU beating the trash out of LSU, and then Texas going into Tuscaloosa, which I was pretty impressed. But I'll have more on that later. Fresh, let's just start here. Where did you have the game of the week? I mean, was it the Texas
Whew.
Alabama game, or
It was in the same time slot, let's put it that way. But the game out there in Lubbock, Texas, between Oregon and Texas Tech was back and forth, bonkers, close all the way. Texas Tech had multiple chances to win. In the end, Oregon gets it done, and Oregon gets the backdoor cover on a pick six. Um, hey, like we have always said, good teams win, great teams cover. Oregon found a way not just to find a way to get a win, to get the backdoor cover, take care of business, lots of points, lots of excitement. Um, that was, I think, a hidden ball game because everyone was over there watching Alabama and Texas. But if you put on that recorder watching the highlights, that Oregon Texas Tech game was fantastic. And the Red Raiders, that's 0-2 start. That's a little rough, but all in all, great game to, especially from watchability and from impact.
yeah, that was a huge game. I thought Texas Tech played very well in the game. I think they're probably the best 0-2 team in the country right now. They've played 2 really good games. My game of the week, though, was a little less sexy than that. I went with Utah going at Baylor. Utah coming back, still don't have Cam Rising. They wind up scoring 2 late touchdowns to get them back into the game. But, with Kyle Whittingham, it wouldn't be anything without the Utah defense, and they just hold just enough to hold off Baylor's late surge at the end of that game. Awesome game there. If you guys didn't get a chance to see the highlights to that one, make sure you go back and check out Utah versus Baylor. Really impressed with what the Utes are doing. They're 2-0 and have done it very, not in great fashion, but, like I said, they're still waiting for the quarterback to get back.
I mean, that defense, no matter, they just put guys out there with the red helmet with the U on it, and they just figure out what they're supposed to do. They're always in the right position. They tackle. They play as an 11-man unit. They're always a force to be reckoned with. And doing this without Rising, it just shows that they're only going to get better, folks, once they hit Pac-12 play and he gets healthy and ready to go.
All right, Fresh, who is your offensive player of the week?
Oh, boy. There was a lot of fireworks all over the country, but I got to go with Tyler Van Dyke, or his mom's jersey says Tyler Van Dyne. This is something we thought we were going to see last year from him at Miami. He had a great year in 21. We thought 22 was going to be, an improvement. He laid a dud, as well as the entire Hurricane team did. But he came out here on Saturday, down there in a 3/4 filled Miami, down Miami Gardens in the Hard Rock Casino Stadium, and took care of the Aggies, took care of DJ Durkin's Aggie defense, and 374, 5 touchdowns. And what's even more impressive, because look, the Miami football program, they're all about points and flair and everything. He's the first Miami quarterback ever to throw 5 touchdowns versus an AP top 25 ranked team. Ever. That's not Bernie Kosar, not Ken Dorsey, not Vinny Testaverde, not any of them. That's saying something right there with all the talent they've had over the years. So Tyler Van Dyke's my guy.
Yeah, Van Dyke had a phenomenal game this past weekend. I went with two. I went with two running backs because their stat lines were so close. Jordan Waters of the Duke Blue Devils, the top 25 ranked Duke Blue Devils, 11 carries, 112 yards, two touchdowns, ran for 10.2 yards a carry. My other offensive player of the week was Audric Esime. Again, looking what he did against that NC State defense, we thought he would have a big game. He sure enough did. 14 carries, 134 yards, two touchdowns, 9.6 yards per carry. So I have both of them as my players of the week because, I think we're in this fun age of running backs throughout the country right now. Yeah, everyone's going to get the love to the quarterbacks, but there's some great running backs all over the United States playing college football right now.
Yeah, college football running backs get a lot more love than NFL running backs, but hey, they're getting NIL money and not getting paid by a GM.
Yeah. All right, Fresh, who'd you go with your defensive player of the week?
Well, it ties to my game of the week. I'm going with Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon. 9 total tackles and the pick six to get the backdoor cover. He led the team in tackles all over the field, and you get that clutch one. And there's some boosters back there, probably Phil Knight and all of them, who said, "All right, son, that's a little extra NIL money, but the way to seal the deal and ensure they got the win on the road and not just squeak by is a big win."
Yeah. Fresh, I'm going to Manhattan, Kansas. We got to show some love to those K-State Wildcats. They're quietly 2-0 on the year. Sanders is getting all that love in that area. What Texas has got going on, Oklahoma's 2-0. But people forget that K-State Wildcat team, they're Big 12 champions. So to be the man, woo, you got to beat the man. So I'm going with Khalil Duke, the defensive end there. 2 sacks on the game, 3 tackles, a forced fumbled as well. Absolutely dominant effort by him. He is being just a wrecking ball on the edge of that line for the Wildcats. So I really, really like what's going on there in Manhattan, Kansas. Can't wait to see the Wildcats match up with some of the other talented programs in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, Big 12 play, Pac-12 play, conference play is going to be ridiculous. And that's where we're going to start seeing some separation. But right now, it's setting up for exciting matchups.
Yep, absolutely. What was your dud of the week?
I mean, how much time we have?
Right.
There were 2 quarterbacks that laid some major duds. One was Jeff Sims, who, yikes, that was pretty rough there in Boulder. And the other one was Tyler Schott, the quarterback for Texas Tech, who actually outdid Jeff Sims by having 4 turnovers. Sims had 3, he had 4. If you're trying to win football games, protecting the football, and no matter what level you're playing, is most important. And your quarterback's just letting it go left and right. That leads for bad things. The 2 of them are my biggest duds of the weekend.
Yeah, my dud award goes to the Wisconsin Badgers running game. Braylon Allen, Tanner Mordecai, and the Wisconsin offensive line. Yeah, you're traveling away. You're going to Washington State. You're not playing Washington. You're not playing Oregon State. No, you're playing the Cougars over there. You run for 90 yards on 29 carries and lose a football game that you have absolutely no business losing. You should have dominated the line of scrimmage in that game. You should have ran the football all over them. Braylon Allen should have had a easy 100-yard game in this game. And they do absolutely nothing. That offensive line for Wisconsin is way too big, way too good for a showing like this. I was extremely disappointed in them, and that's why Wisconsin took the L on Saturday.
Yeah, I think not just the running game. I think the Badgers across the board were outcoached and outplayed. Life's coming at Luke Fickell real fast, and the game you're supposed to be coming in to win. The team lost at home last year. You had measuring stick set, and you didn't even get anywhere close to it. Big Ten play is gonna be tough if you keep playing like that.
Absolutely. All right, Fresh. Who's got your Heisman vote right now?
Shedeur Sanders. I mean, the kid's a dude. He just showing up, makes plays. After what he did last week, versus TCU, comes in here as a 10 a.m. kick out there in Boulder. You can see it was a little sluggish start for both those teams because it's pretty early, but as the game got going, he just got back to his normal self. 300, almost 400 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. He's fire, and they're going to only get better. I cannot wait for when USC and Oregon, those 2 matchups come in 2 and 3 weeks from now when they get both those games. we're going to see some fireworks.
Absolutely. Sanders is nipping at the heels. I almost went with Sanders as well, but Michael Penix Jr. still has my vote right now. Phenomenal performance out of him. But we're going to see really where he's going to be at this week, even though Michigan State just fired their head coach and Mel Tucker
Well,
is no longer the coach. Well, maybe,
there's
maybe
reports
not.
he's fired, reports he's not, but it's a very, very bad situation there for the Spartans and for Mel
Yeah.
Tucker.
So we're going to see what is going to happen to that Michigan State defense because I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to absolutely torch them this upcoming week. But a lot of things to talk about. We'll get to that in the preview episode. But I'm telling you, Sanders is, if I have Penix Jr. as 1A right now, Sanders is 1B, and I might be changing my Heisman vote if it comes to it next week.
I'm telling you, if he goes to Oregon and takes down the Ducks or beats USC, it might be tough to push him from that top of the pedestal.
Right. It might be very, very difficult to make it up even 3 weeks in. I think that hype train's always already going to be building. But
Oh, no doubt.
speaking of hype trains, Fresh, let's get to the top 15 walking into week number 3. I shook mine up. You have not seen my top 15 yet, and there has been some major, major shakeups in my top 15. So, Fresh, what you got? Where's your top 15 right now?
Well, if you follow me on Twitter, my top 25 was out early this afternoon, early Sunday afternoon, but my top 15 here is Georgia still retaining number 1, Florida State still at number 2, Michigan 3, Ohio State 4, Texas 5, USC 6, Penn State 7, Utah's 8, Washington's 9, Notre Dame has jumped into my top 10 at number 10, Oregon Ducks are at 11, Tennessee's at 12, Alabama dropped from 3 to 13, Kansas State's 14, and Oregon State is my 15th overall.
Interesting. All right, Fresh. Here's the crazy one. My top 15, after going into Tuscaloosa and boat racing the Crimson Tide, because that was ugly as that game went on and on. The Texas Longhorns deserve to be, it's about what you've done this year, not what you've done in years previously. I have the Texas Longhorns at number 1 in the country right now. I'm putting a lot of stock into that win in Tuscaloosa. That's why they jump all the way up to number 1. I got Georgia going to number 2 now. Florida State is sitting at 3. I'm going to levitate them all the way to that 3 spot. Michigan's going to slide a spot to number 4. Ohio State is sitting there at the top at 5. I got Penn State number 6, and I almost flip-flopped Ohio State and Penn State because Penn State's looking really, really good with those 2 running backs. USC's at 7, Washington's at 8, Notre Dame at 9, Utah rounds out the top 10, Oregon's at 11, Tennessee at 12. I got Alabama, same as you, dropping down to number 13. Oregon State is at 14, and Kansas State rounds out the top 15 for me right now.
I have Texas. I held them off because I want to see what they do against somebody else because we always had that one time where Texas might let us down. So give me some time on that. But they owned the line of scrimmage. They threw Alabama's offensive line around like a bunch of ragdolls. If it wasn't for some fluke plays every once in a while from Alabama, they wouldn't ever be in a ball game. They're impressive. Sark's got them under control. But here's the thing: now there's no excuses for Texas. The way you look, you should run roughshod through the entire Big 12, and you should be sitting in the playoff undefeated. So now the pressure's even more because there is no more excuses.
Right. It's going to make it for a fascinating Red River rivalry here in a few weeks. I love the fact now, because Texas has that huge win under their belt, because they were able to beat the Crimson Tide early in this season, now all of a sudden there becomes like a countdown clock to Red River, because Oklahoma's looking like a better team too, and looking like Venables has got that team in the right direction. So now, let's start the countdown clock to Red River rivalry and just tick, tick, tick. It's like the 60 minutes clock, just tick, 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 going right there. We're waiting for that Texas-Oklahoma, because I think as a few more of these teams take L's and drop out of the top 15, I think Oklahoma is going to be one of those teams that gets very close to getting into our top 15. That should by the time of that game, as long as Oklahoma and Texas both stay undefeated, that could be a top 15 matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's looking good. They had a little struggle earlier versus SMU, but they found ways to pull away and put the game away with authority on Saturday night, which is something you want to see from a young team trying to get themselves around. Like, they could have kept dragging their feet, but they found ways to buckle up in the fourth quarter, get it done, and pile on points. I'm torn. There's Gabriel and Arnold. Both the offenses look almost similar with both them in there. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that quarterback situation continues to play out.
Yeah. Just outside for me, I got three teams that are just chomping at the bit. They need someone in front of them to lose, though, I feel like. I got Colorado sitting there at 16, just outside my top 15. And I got UNC, who was pushed by App State, but, people want to forget, like, App State's a very, very talented group of five team. They will have an argument of being the best of the group of five teams by the end of the season. And then Ole Miss, a great win over Tulane in Tulane. That's impressive. Those are my three teams. They just need someone in front of them to lose, and they'll jump right into my top 15.
Yeah, my three that are right outside my top 15, I got Ole Miss at 16, Colorado at 17, and UNC at 18. I actually dropped UNC a couple spots because you've gone to overtime 2 straight years against App State. So buckle up there, especially after the impressive game versus South Carolina. But the three of them are right there. And Ole Miss, they made a nice little jump for me, because they went to Tulane and they played hard. They found ways to get a win. They're one of the few SEC teams that actually showed up the past couple of weeks, and actually has gotten themselves some W's. Now, looking at my top 25, UCF is sitting right there on the outside of the top 25. They're 2-0. Right. They had a nice little win at Boise State. James Madison's there, as well as Louisville and Cincinnati. So we're still trying to shake out how the game's going to be run right now, but we're starting to see some teams really identify themselves as conference champion contenders.
Yeah, and another team that a lot of people probably missed because they were playing also at the same time as Alabama is UCLA. How they played up going to San Diego State. It's a big win by the Bruins there. They got a win over Coastal Carolina, win over San Diego State. I know that they're itching to get into conference play as well to show off of what they can do. I got UCLA starting to climb the ladder too. That I know we have them in our top 25 right now, but I expect them to make a little bit of a jump here soon too.
They're like the quietest of all quiet. We're not really paying attention to them. They don't have the stud running back like Charbonnet like they had last year, or Bobo at receiver, or DTR quarterback. They're starting to figure out who their quarterback is, get them all settled, and Chip Kelly and company are quietly taking care of business out there on the West Coast.
Right, absolutely. All right, folks, make sure you hit that subscribe button there because we got week number 3 coming up here. Already, our week 3 slate of games, we're going to be talking about Penn State traveling to Illinois. We got South Carolina versus the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens. Washington traveling a very, very interesting situation building at Michigan State. Pitt at West Virginia in the backyard brawl. And Tennessee at UF. Plus, don't make sure that you follow us on Twitter. Vote in our fan poll. Decide what's going to be our last game of the week there. We have a couple of games up there that very interesting matchups. So make sure you're following us on Twitter. Interact with us. Go to spinnablesports.com because that's where you're going to find all sorts of content as well. Our producer, Drew, special thanks to him. Without him, none of this is possible. He's dropping a new show over there on YouTube for those of you who like the NFL type of stuff as well. Make sure you check him out. Like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Leave us that 5-star review because Fresh and I were those 5-star prospects. And with that, Fresh, we march on.
Marching on to week 3. Big things coming. Join the ride with us all, folks. And with that, bye, y'all.